Last week, we put together an all-star European 11, and it'd be fair to say, it looked a pretty strong one. We have previously done combined 11s for the continents of Africa and Asia, but in truth, the European and South American ones were always likely to reign supreme. We may still do videos for North America, Oceania, and who knows, maybe even Antarctica, but today, we're just focusing on South America. South America has long been a hotbed of footballing excellence, particularly in Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. Brazil have won more World Cups than any other country, Argentina produced arguably 3 of the 5 greatest footballers to have ever lived, and Uruguay dominated the early intercontinental era and won the first ever World Cup. We're now some way into a barren spell for South American nations though, who have fallen behind their European counterparts on the international stage. Without a world title since 2002, the Brazilians having been humiliated 7-1 on home soil in 2014, and not a single South American nation in the last 4 of the 2018 World Cup. This lack of success on the international stage isn't necessarily a reflection of a dearth of individual talent hailing from South America though, as our starting 11 shows, and we'll be interested to see how you rate this side compared to our European one last week. To clarify, any player from a country affiliated with the South American Football Confederation is eligible. Here is our all-star South American 11. Goalkeeper: EDERSON. South America hasn't always been blessed with the best goalkeepers. When we did our all-time positional series, all 7 of our 7 greatest goalkeepers of all time were European. That tide has started to shift a little though, and in our more recent look at the 7 best goalkeepers in world football right now, there were 2 South Americans. Fernando Muslera deserves an honourable mention, but those 2 were EDERSON and Alisson, both Brazilian internationals and both fighting for the Premier League title as we speak at Liverpool and Man City respectively this season. It's splitting hairs picking between the 2 of them to be honest. Alisson is perhaps a little bit more complete and has slightly better handling, whereas EDERSON is better with his feet and maybe edges it in terms of reflexes. Most people would probably lean towards Alisson. I've previously leant towards EDERSON, so I'm just about sticking with the latter so I don't get loads of people telling me I'm inconsistent in the comments. In truth, we think it's pretty much a 50-50 call. Right back: Santiago Arias. Possibly the weakest position in this 11 in terms of the number of options at our disposal and the overall depth there, we think it's a choice between Santiago Arias and Dani Alves at right back. Alves has been South America's best right back for about a decade, at least since Maicon had his career ended by Gareth Bale and Javier Zanetti hit 35 or 36. Alves himself is 35 now though, coming to the end of a 2-year deal at PSG and having spent much of this season sidelined through injury. With that in mind, we've edged towards Santiago Arias, who is 8 years younger than Alves and is now part of one of the most formidable backlines in Europe with Atletico Madrid. Arias made his name in Europe with PSV, where he spent 5 seasons, before joining Atletico for £11 million in the summer. He has been competing with Juan Fran for the right back spot this season, and one suspects he'll make it his own next term. Centre back: Diego Godin. On the right side of our centre back partnership is South America's finest defender, and arguably the world's. A masterful reader of the game, a fierce competitor, and a real leader out on the pitch, Diego Godin has been an absolute titan at the back for 9 years with Atletico Madrid and for 15 years with the Uruguayan national team. At the age of 33, Godin is as good as ever, and his inclusion was one of the easiest in our entire 11. He'd be our captain as well. Centre back: Thiago Silva. Whilst Godin was one of the first names in our starting 11, his centre-back partner was a little bit trickier. The leading candidates were Thiago Silva, Marquinhos, Jose Jimenez and Nicolas Otamendi. Cases can be made for all 4, but we think Thiago Silva is the right man for the job. A year older than Godin at 34, Silva has 11 years of international experience to his name, and he was one of PSG's first marquee signings following Qatari investment in 2012. During 6 seasons in Ligue 1, Silva has made the Ligue 1 Team of the Season 6 times, and he'll most likely make it 7 from 7 when this season draws to a close. Physically excellent, possessing the pace and power to compete with any style of centre forward, Silva is one of the most complete centre backs of the last 10 years, and he form a very solid and experienced duo in alongside Diego Godin. Left back: Marcelo. Thanks to Brazil, we have quality left backs coming out of our ears. Marcelo, Alexandro, Alex Telles, even Felipe Luis are all quality, but since we recently picked Marcelo as the best left back in the world, it was clear who had to start for us. Marcelo, like many Real Madrid players, is coming to the end of one of the worst seasons of his career, but that is a mere blip for a man with more than 500 career appearances to his name. Marcelo arrived at the Bernabeu as a long-term replacement for Roberto Carlos, and he has proved a more than worthy heir to the Brazilian's throne. Technically superb, strong, explosive, a constant outlet down the left flank, and increasingly capable defensively in his late 20s, Marcelo has to be our left back. Defensive midfield. CASEMIRO. Another Brazilian and another Real Madrid player, Marcelo said a few years back that with CASEMIRO alongside him, he felt like he could play until he was 45. The tough-tackling midfield enforcer arrived in Europe from Sao Paulo, and he was integral in all 4 of Real's recent Champions League titles. A midfield anchor who gave both Real's midfielders like Modric and Kroos and their fullbacks Marcelo and Carvajal the freedom to push on and express themselves, CASEMIRO is a defensive midfielder who just loves to defend. South Americans have always been famous for the freedom, creativity and flair in their game, and our 11 is no exception. So a true midfield destroyer like CASEMIRO is an invaluable addition. Defensive midfield. Fernandinho. We don't have one but 2 holding midfielders in this side, and once you see the 4 players in front of them, you'll understand why. We could have had about 5 or 6 centre forwards shoehorned into this side, but we always like our fancy 11s to be functional and realistic, and having Fernandinho in alongside CASEMIRO would offer such security to our forwards and fullbacks. Fernandinho is yet to show his best form in a Brazil shirt, but for Man City, he is the finest defensive midfielder in club football, with only Sergio Busquets for real competition. Aging like a fine wine, the 33-year-old is energetic, intelligent, and really neat on the ball. He's not quite as aggressive as CASEMIRO, but he's smarter, better on the ball, and more accurate in the pass. In the right system, no offence meant to Chiche there, these 2 should provide one of the finest bases any manager could dream of. Right wing. Lionel Messi. On the right flank, somewhat incredibly since we're 8 players into this starting 11, is our first Argentinian. That's perhaps some indication of how far Argentina have fallen and why Lionel Messi has, as of yet, been unable to win a major international trophy with La Albiceleste, although he did come almightily close in 2014. Messi is, simply put, and in my opinion at least, the greatest footballer of all time, and I have done a video explaining why I consider that to be the case for any of you who may be interested. A magician on the ball, a genius in the pass, and devastating in the finish, Messi has a more complete game, greater consistency, and superior longevity to any other player I know of at least. He's the first name on this team sheet, and our star man in the position he has played most frequently this season, out wide on the right. Attacking midfield. Luis Suarez. We had lots of options for the number 10 position, such as James Rodriguez from Colombia, Philippe Coutinho from Brazil, and Paulo Dybala from Argentina. Why then have we gone for a centre forward in Luis Suarez? Well, to put it bluntly, Suarez is too good to leave out. What's more, he has transitioned as a player at Barcelona, where he isn't the primary goalscorer anymore, into a pretty unselfish and incredibly well-rounded footballer. A really clever and cunning player with an insatiable will to win, Suarez is still pretty prolific, but he's likely to be the 3rd or 4th highest scorer in our 11. Left wing. Neymar. Neymar's starting berth on the left flank was never really in doubt, the Brazilian being second only to Lionel Messi in terms of the finest South American footballers in the world right now. From when he first broke through at Santos to making his big money move to Barcelona, being his country's talisman at a World Cup on home soil, and then becoming the world's most expensive footballer in an unpopular move from Barcelona to PSG, Neymar has always had to live with enormous pressure, but his performance levels and attacking output have never waned. The archetypal Brazilian star in terms of his style, flair and confidence, Neymar also has no lack of end product in the final third. He scored 136 goals in 223 games, mostly as a kid at Santos, 105 goals in 186 games at Barcelona, 48 goals in 53 games so far at PSG, and he's Brazil's 3rd highest scorer of all time with 60 goals from 96 caps to date. A special player and an automatic starter. Centre forward. Sergio Aguero. We obviously had a plethora of centre forwards to choose from here. Aside from the fact that both Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez, who have already featured, could have played there, we also had the choice of the likes of Edinson Cavani, Mauro Icardi and Gonzalo Higuain. Rich competition no doubt, but my preference was always Sergio Aguero. The most prolific player in the top 5 of English football since it was rebranded as the Premier League in 1992, in terms of his minutes per goal record, Aguero is just sensational at his best. He has tended to have niggling injuries throughout his career, which have probably prevented him from having a 40+ goal season, but when fully fit and really at the races, he's just about unstoppable. His movement, acceleration and finishing are devastating, and he has scored 228 goals in 329 games for Man City, making him their all-time record goalscorer. We have plenty of options, but Aguero is the best of those options, and I think it would be madness to leave him out. Substitutes. As always, we do have our substitutes bench to fall back on, and it's a good thing too, with a starting 11 as competitive as this one. In goal, as we said, it was such fine margins between Ederson and Alisson, so inevitably, it is Alisson who just missed out, who is our backup goalkeeper. At centre back, there are pros and cons to all 4 of the leading candidates, but I think I'd go with Marquinhos at a push, although I probably would have said Otamendi last season. Our backup fullback has to be Alexandro, who will run Marcelo close for that left back spot in the Brazil side over the next couple of years and will one day inherit it for good, barring any disasters. In holding midfield, one can make an excellent case for Arturo Vidal, who subscribers to this channel will know we are big fans of. But since we've 2 defensive midfielders in our side and really need a backup holding player, I'm going to give that spot on the bench to Liverpool star Fabinho. From a current Liverpool man to a former one, the next player on our bench is Philippe Coutinho. Bringing flair, creativity, and perhaps most importantly of all, versatility to our bench, Coutinho can play in central midfield, attacking midfield, or in his most common position now, on the left wing. Then we come to Paulo Dybala, who is too talented not to make at least the bench, and can also double up as either a number 10 or as an out-and-out centre forward. Dybala is yet to really spring into life in an Argentina shirt with just 18 caps and only 1 goal to his name today, but he's a marvellous technician capable of unlocking any defence, and a wonderful player to have waiting in the wings. Last, but by no means least, our 7th and final substitute as backup to Sergio Aguero has to be Edinson Cavani. Uruguayans have a fervent passion for football, and it's exhibited yet again with their representation in this 11 for such a tiny nation. Cavani has scored 46 goals in 109 games for La Celeste, along with 192 goals in 271 games for PSG, which makes him the Parisians' all-time leading goalscorer. The team. From back to front, our South American 11 reads Ederson, Santiago Arias, Diego Godin, Thiago Silva, Marcelo, Casemiro, Fernandinho, Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, Neymar and Sergio Aguero, with a bench of Alisson, Marquinhos, Alexandro, Fabinho, Philippe Coutinho, Paulo Dybala and Edinson Cavani. It has been mentioned that we should also have managers for these 11s, which is an easy choice here, as we'd had to go for Diego Simeone. So that's it for our South American 11, but what we want to know is, how would that side get on against last week's European 11? I think most people would agree that the European 11 had a stronger back 5, but the South American front 4 is pretty special. Anyhow, let us know your views on that in the comments, and whether you'd like to see us continue this series to include North America, Oceania, or Antarctica. And of course, do make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on for HITC Sevens.